All right. The second thing to do is manual expense tracking. So this is also something I've been doing for years and years. And it's quite interesting because when I started doing this, manual expense tracking was like the only option. Whereas now it's pretty normal that your bank probably has some kind of an expense tracking feature, right? Where the money you spend with your card is automatically categorized and stuff like that. Like lots of banks have that as part of their base features. And also, this depends on what country you live in, but also there's all kinds of like apps and financial services and so on that also do this, right? It's like, hey, we pull together all the data from your banks and cards and so on, turn it into nice graphs and all that. And no doubt that can be useful, but what I recommend is to manually track your expenses. And I recommend using Toshal for this. This is, and I'm sure there's other apps, but my favorite app for this is Toshal, which we'll link to as well in the show notes. So what you do is whenever you spend money, you enter that amount manually. And the way Toshal works is you have different categories, and you have different tags, and then you also have a description. And the way I use it is, so for example, today I went to get some avocados, and then I enter the amount that cost, and it's category, food, and tag, I have tag for groceries and a tag for eating out. And in this case, it's just food, groceries. That's it. Whenever I buy something that isn't like so there's some expenses where I simply tag them, rent, food, stuff like that. Whenever I buy something else, so let's say if I buy a new lens for one of my cameras, then I will add that as an expense. I have like a tech and gadgets category, but I'll also add a note that says what I bought. And still, this only takes a few seconds, right? But I'll write down, this is what this expense was for, so that I have a complete picture afterwards of where my money went. But why do this manually? Well, the reason I recommend doing this manually is because I think, like most people, I generally don't use cash anymore, because just using your card or your phone or whatever is just so much more convenient, right?
Yeah.
So, and because of that, that makes spending like very automatic and unconscious. And manual expense tracking is just the antidote to that. Like it's never a mystery to me. Like the amount of money I have in an account at the end of the month is never a mystery to me. I'm never like, oh, where did all this money go? Because every single time I spend, I have this manual action where I confront myself with, this is how much I spent, this is where I put it. Plus, I get the breakdown afterwards by category and tag and so on and so forth, right? So I can also then look back on the entire year and see where my money went.
Two things to say to that. One of them is Toshal is pretty good. I've downloaded Toshal and started using it since you recommended it to me, or you said it on this team call about a month or so ago. Mm-hmm. And it is really good. It is really good. It takes a little while for the categories to sort of fall into place and for it to get to know what you're actually spending money on and stuff. But it is really good. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is more of an observation, more something that came up for me when you were talking. So I was thinking to myself, right, so you are financially free, and yet you are tracking every expense manually. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, why would a person who is already financially free go to all this trouble? But then I thought, maybe you wouldn't be financially free if you didn't prioritize that.
Yeah.
That makes sense? So it's like the kind of person who is financially free is the kind of person who does these kind of things and prioritizes them.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'll reach a point where I'm financially free and then I can just forget about it all and then just like spend what I want.
Yeah, and you can, you don't have to look far for stories that prove that no matter how high your income is, it's absolutely possible to just piss it all away. So I think that it's, no matter what your income level is, it's always good to be prudent and to be aware of what you're spending money on. And for me, it is something that has changed. I used to be very, very frugal, and I'm not very frugal anymore. Like I don't, it's not like I'm I don't prescribe to like wild consumerism, but a lot more often than I used to, I buy expensive gadgets that I don't necessarily need. Like this one here. I don't need this, but it's pretty cool.
We have movie night here sometimes. And to cater to this, Shane bought this projector. It was like this towering thing. It was just like, Jesus Christ. And we just took one look at that and we're like, we're not even going to ask how expensive that was because that's the real deal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Shane's always shady about the figure as well. It's like, how much was that? It's like, it was a lot.
Yeah.
How much? It was a lot.
Yeah. So that's the kind of thing that I wouldn't have done. That's only relatively recently that I started spending money on this kind of thing. But also, I mean, the projector, it's also like an environment optimization thing that we have to talk about in a different context, right? There's a very specific choice about why I bought a projector and not a TV. But yeah, that kind of thing where I'm like, look, I can afford this, it's fine, but I don't want to just be doing that left and right. And I don't want to be unaware of it, right? I want to know. I can then look at, oh, wow, I spent a lot of money this month. Oh, yeah, here's why,
Not just be like, oh, all this money's gone. I have no idea where it's
Yeah.
gone. Just, yeah, of course, I get it.
Yeah. So, and also on this note, I have to say, Toshal also offers automation stuff. In the premium version, you can connect it to your cards and bank accounts and so on and so forth. Don't do that. Like, you can still get the premium version because it has some other extra features, but don't use the automation features. Track everything manually. That's important. So yeah, if you're thinking, that sounds pretty cumbersome. That sounds annoying. Yeah, that's the point.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking, oh man, tracking every expense manually. But that's the point.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about that. Why?
Yeah, because you want to add friction, right? You want to add friction, and it's a way to make your decisions deliberate. Because that is the downside of convenience. And obviously, of course, every financial institution in the world and every shop and every vendor is interested in you having the least possible friction to purchase things. So that's great. Yeah, you want this thing, just pull out your phone, beep, done. Don't even worry about it. And this is why, how now when you buy things, again, this might be different in different countries, but in most places I've been, when you buy something, like when you pay with a card, then they will explicitly tell you, this is the amount, and maybe you have to press OK, and then you can pay. And this is why, is because essentially governments in different places have had to mandate, like, listen, for contactless purchases, this is a rule. When you're the vendor, at the point of sale, you have to say out loud what the amount is. You have to get confirmation from the customer. Because it's actually, if you remove that too, it's like catastrophically frictionless. And this is actually then, detrimental to society.